O tēnā tātou katoa, me timata ke ngā kōrero mo tō mata iwi kōrero, hene te pai maunga ko raua te awa ko Ngati Kauwhata te iwi. Anei Ngati Kauwhata ko taimai tēnei rā, te whakatakato i o mātou whakaaro i runga i tēnei take. Ki tō mātou whakaaro e whakamemehe ana i te mana o te tiriti o Waitangi. Nō reira, ko taimai mātou ko ngā Kaitiaki o Ngati Kauwhata, koina te ratonga e manakitia nei, te iwi whānui, o tira ngā hapori katoa tō mātou takiwa. Tainua tira ki ngā kaihautu o ngā hapu e toru o Ngati Kauwhata, ko Ngati Tūroa, ko Ngati Hine Pare, tainua atu kia tahuri wakanui nō reira, tēnei mātou mihi atu nei, kia kōtau. Hoi anō me kuhu au ki te ia o ngā kōrero kei a mātou o Ngati Kauwhata i tēnei wā. Well, I'd start by saying it's a firm belief of Ngati Kauwhata that this bill should never have made it to first reading in the first place, and we shouldn't actually be here today, because in essence, the thinking of Ngati Kauwhata is that the bill really does attempt to dismantle what we believe are some of the most important constitutional underpinnings of our nation. And like many others, we also view this bill as a major attempt to really erode the mana motuhake of iwi and hapu throughout Aotearoa, particularly by watering down what we feel is the substance and essence of te tiriti o Waitangi. Nō reira tākoe mea atu nei, he whai ke whakamemeha, ke whakamimiti i te mana me te mauri o te tiriti o Waitangi. Perhaps just as concerning for our iwi of Ngati Kauwhata is the fact that the bill, in our view, really does attempt to subvert the principle of equity in favour of the principle of equivalence. And since 1840, Ngati Kauwhata have suffered numerous injustices as a result, really, of breaches of te tiriti o Waitangi. Through no wrongdoing of our own, we have actually become one of the most landless iwi in the nation. And this has actually led to severe inequities that our people have had to contend with and actually endure intergenerationally. And Ngati Kauwhata are still navigating a number of those inequities to this day. So that the suggestion, particularly in Article 3, that the principle of equivalence ought to take precedence over equity from a te tiriti perspective would constitute, in our view, a catastrophic failure on the Crown's part to uphold that which was agreed to in 1840. As an iwi who have a long journey ahead of us to heal the wounds of past injustices, we're deeply concerned about this bill on multiple levels. Te tiriti partnership is not an MOU or a contract to be renewed annually. It's permanent and it's enduring. And to that end, we also state that this bill has the potential to really tear apart the social fabric of Aotearoa and to really undermine the sovereign rights of Māori as te tiriti partners to the Crown. It's clear to many New Zealanders that this bill has already placed relationships between Māori and the Crown at a precipice, really, where levels of distrust by Māori of the Crown are higher than ever before. The Crown can de-escalate this pressure by not promoting further opportunities to use te tiriti as a means of effectively diminishing the rangatiratanga and mana motuhake of te iwi Māori. Were this bill to be passed, our people of Ngati Kauwhata would be rendered even more vulnerable at the hands of the Crown, particularly insofar as we've yet to settle our claim, which is part of the Porirua Ki Manawatu inquiry. And this bill, in our view, places our claim under extremely high risk because of the fact that a change in te tiriti principles would actually, in some ways, absolve the Crown from its failure to uphold the things it promised to us as te tiriti partners in 1840. For Ngati Kauwhata, that failure led to severe consequences and often irreversible inequities, and some of those, which are actually intergenerational, include inequities in education. Our people do not experience educational success at the same level of non-Māori in our takiwa, in our rohe. Inequities in health. Our people die earlier than non-Māori in our rohe, and our people have a higher prevalence of poor health. Inequities in land ownership and title. The things which were once under our collective ownership were just unjustly acquired, subdivided and sold. And another example being inequities in intergenerational wealth, whereby the failure of the education system to provide for our people led to high levels of unemployment, leading to greater deprivation, and leading also to negative aspects such as high levels of financial desperation and onwards to incarceration, and the list goes on. So the Crown, in the view of Ngati Kauwhata, must account for its due responsibilities as the te tiriti partner and to actually maintain its ongoing commitment to the process of reconciliation, but also the process of the redress of historical grievances. But always, and this is probably an important point, to bear in mind the fact that te tiriti o Waitangi was signed by our tupuna as a document for the future, not the past. And it's important that the Crown bears in mind the fact that te tiriti is about the future. It's also about the future of our mokopuna and our tamariki. Nō reira, mea ana mātou o Ngati Kauwhata, kia kaurawa, e rawekingia te tiriti o Waitangi. Waiho te tapu o te tiriti, waiho te mana o te tiriti kia toitu. Just to really bring this to a summary, I guess, there's also another important document which many have made reference to, he whakaputanga. And as Ngati Kauwhata, we also stand by the assertion of sovereignty, which is outlined and actually premised in he whakaputanga. Ngati Kauwhata, as mentioned, has suffered significantly and intergenerationally through what we describe to the Waitangi Tribunal as te pene raupatu, whereby the confiscation of land rights and legal land title occurred not through military invasion in our rohe, but instead through the coercion of false signatories and the premeditated bankruptcies of the last remaining Ngati Kauwhata landowners in the period following the signing of te tiriti o Waitangi. Therefore, the key point is that the Waitangi Tribunal is now really our only recourse into righting the wrongs of the past. And in particular, were the principles of te tiriti to be changed, it would place our claim, and most likely the claims of other iwi and hapu, at significant risk. Therefore, Ngati Kauwhata call on the Crown to fully honour its obligations and responsibilities by ensuring that te tiriti o Waitangi is beyond reproach, It should not and ought never have been placed in such a position of vulnerability in the first place. We also emphasise again the fact that settlements cannot be full and final when the injustices that they seek to address are in fact ongoing. This particular issue for Ngati Kauwhata has caused significant mamai, not only to us as an iwi, but to many other iwi across the motu. And it's important, we believe, that the place of Te Tiriti or Waitangi is affirmed through this process. Finally, we implore the Crown to work with Māori rather than working against Māori. If anything, the Toitu Tiriti movement last year bore testament to that fact, that we do have support from our Waitangi partners, Tiriti or Waitangi partners in terms of tangata Tiriti, and there is a growing realisation that we have travelled a long way, but we don't want to regress, and we don't want to diminish all of the good work that's been done in recent decades, particularly that undertaken by the Waitangi Tribunal. Nō reira, koia tēnei ko ngā kōrero a tō mata iwi a Ngati Kauwhata, tēnei te whakatakato atu nei, I mua I te aroaro I a kōtau I tēnei rā, nō reira tēnā ko te tēnā tātou katoa.
Kia ora, Maihana. Thank you for your presentation. We've got time for a question. Let's go to Huhana Linden.
Tēnā koe Maihana Ōwhira, tēnā koutou ngauri o te pene raupatu, Ngati Kauwhata. It's really hard to hear time after time as iwi Māori come before the committee talking to the very real impact that we are seeing within community, but also the stress of having to submit week after week on bills such as the Treaty Principles Bill. Can you speak from an iwi perspective of te nui o te hoha, o tēnei momo mahi a te kāwanatanga ki runga I a koutou?
Tēnā koe Huhana. Kia mātou Ngati Kauwhata, kāre mātou tino hiehia ki te hara mai mo enei momo take. Kei roto I a mātou tēnei rā ko ngā Kaitiaki o Ngati Kauwhata. Ko te tino mahi a ngā Kaitiaki, he arataki I roto I ngā kaupapa pēnā I te hauora o te rā te tautoko I ngā whānau. So we would agree that it's a waste of good time of our people who actually have other important jobs to do. Part of the kaupapa of ngā Kaitiaki o Ngati Kauwhata, of course, is to ensure that they can manaaki and look after our whānau, our hapu and our iwi. And for us, that's the absolute priority. We do not want to be here, actually, Uganda, but we've had our hand forced by the fact that this bill has gone through the first reading. And as an iwi, we also believe that if we don't have a voice in this discourse, then we're doing our people a disservice. So we would rather be at home. We would rather be in Aotearoa, in our takiwā, working alongside our people. And so I would concur with what you've outlined and the concern that you've raised, that if anything, the fact that the bill's gone to first reading has put a lot of pressure on a number of hapu and iwi who actually have other things to do.
Thanks, Maihana. Thank you all for being with us this morning and for your presentation. We do appreciate you taking the time to be with us in person as well.
They seem like really nice people. It's a shame David Seymour didn't pick up the phone and talk to them, because that would have been nice. They seem annoyed that they're there they have to try and say we weren't consulted on this, and again, a lot of iwi and hapu would not be there if they were consulted. Let's just be real. So again, I have to go back again to the fact that, and I'll just go down to my notes here, the New Zealand Settlements Act of 1863, again, that horrible act that stated that the land of any tribe engaged in rebellion against the government could be confiscated. Unfortunately, a lot of innocent people were caught up in that. Hey! James has got things to say. Did you pause him? Yes. Okay. James, you got to hold your horses. James, I know you're ready to talk, but I got to talk. But yeah, so basically, land was confiscated. 1.3 million hectares was confiscated by the Crown. Innocent people that were caught up. And, when I say the word innocent, right, Māori had the right to have a kingitonga, right? They had that right under Te Tiriti, right? The way how it was interpreted. But there were people who did not, that were not in favour of kingitonga. They were also caught up in this mess as well. And hey, they had their land confiscated too, and they were not entitled to any confiscation. And then they were further screwed with the Native Lands Rating Act of 1882, which introduced rates on Māori land and allowed for land to be seized if the rates were not paid. Wow, that's a real kick in the teeth if you're an Indigenous person right there. It's like, hey, is it this land that your ancestors have been living on for 1,000 years? Okay, get off. You haven't paid your money. It's like, what? Okay. It's like, and quite often, the real kicker too is that a lot of these rates were often higher for Māori than they were for Pākehā.
Yeah.
I've actually got a link here to the treaty breaches. Here we go. And I will post that in the chat so people can read it. But yes, please look up in depth about these acts, because when you lose land, when you lose the means to be able to produce stuff, like do things like farming, right, that's going to impact generations to come. We see it with Pākehā farmers, right? It's like, oh, the family farm, we're going to hand that down to the next generation, and the next generation, next generation. So there's economic value in land. You know, you can have your cows on there, you can have your trees on there, or you can have your whatever you want on there, and you can make money off of it. Now, Māori lost that ability.
Yep.
They still don't really have that ability because only 5% of land is now under Māori freehold. Let's see if I got that right. Yep. Okay. So yeah, about 5%. And so yeah, even to this day, you know, we don't really collectively own land to the same, nowhere near to the same extent as they did before. So they can't produce the wealth that they need to be able to really lift up people from out of poverty. So yeah, people go, oh, that was like 200 years ago. Why are you still poor, lol? That's why, because you kind of need land to make money. And we don't have land to make money. So that's why we're poor.
Generational poverty is a thing.
You know, and there were other treaty breaches too, that discriminated against Māori at schools. You know, a lot of Māori kids were encouraged to go learn labouring occupations. They were not encouraged to be doctors or lawyers or be, you know, enter into white collar jobs. And this is, I remember my dad telling me this story, and he was a kid back in the 1960s, you know, at St. Pat's down at Upper Hutt. And he saw this firsthand. He saw Māori kids, Māori boys, you got to go do the agriculture vocations. You got to go study agriculture. You got to go study how to be a mechanic. You got to study this. You can't study the, you know, we don't want to encourage you to become a judge or to become a doctor or whatever. Nah, that's fancy stuff. You're not going to get much money. You're not going to have much luck in that. You know, the systemic racism was there back in those days. And then I'm talking about my parents' generation, by the way.
Yeah.
You know, you still got people that are still in these labouring occupations, still getting paid fuck all, and you wonder why they're poor. So yeah, trickle down shitonomics.
Exactly.
We've got 5 more minutes, I think, for one more submission. I think we can squeeze one out, unless you want to see me rattle on for 5 more minutes about, I don't know.
The submission sections, I don't know, only seem to be 5 minutes now. So yeah, let's break out one more.
We're going to go for it.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed to our Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok.